Welcome to Landscape Photo Editing Sessions. I'm Raya Tearakuri. Today I'm going to be processing a photo from Yosemite that I captured from North Dome, and it's on our camp setup and the Milky Way, with Hapto, of course. So it's going to be a little bit slow because I am exporting some photos, but don't mind that. Alright, so I have 6 photos here that I've captured. 3 photos at 14 seconds. Focused at infinity to capture the Milky Way, and then 3 photos captured at 30 seconds with a lower ISO to focus on the tent. So I'm going to focus stack these manually in Photoshop, and I'm also going to stack them to reduce noise. Alright, I'm going to get started with processing a 14mm shot, 14 second shot I mean. So these were captured with a Sony a7R and the 28mm f2 lens. Also, first thing I want to do is decrease the exposure a little bit. The moon was out, but I purposely overexposed the image just so I can get more detail in the shadows. Alright, obviously I'm going to want some contrast to make the Milky Way stand out a little bit more. But I don't want these shadows too dark. Let's see, I'll reduce the highlights a little bit. Up the shadows. Let's see, I'm going to increase the whites a little bit too. I'm holding down Alt to see where the clipping occurs. So I don't want too much clipping. So I just want to add a little bit more contrast. And then with the blacks, I'll reduce that a little bit. And with clarity, I'll just add a little bit of clarity. Makes everything have a little bit more contrast. And then vibrance. I do want to bring out some of the color in the Milky Way. So I can increase the vibrance a bit. For the white balance, I'm going to play around with this, see how I like it. I'm adding a little bit of magenta, reducing the greens. Alright, that looks pretty good. Let's see. Maybe a little bit more warmer tones. Alright. I'm going to go ahead and reduce the saturation of that color a little bit. That's a little bit too strong for me on half dome. I'm going to go to the HSL sliders and go to saturation. Use the adjustment tool and go into my photo and then start reducing that. Oh, that's pretty laggy. Okay. Let's see. Just a little bit, not too much. Alright, I'm also going to go ahead and zoom in 100% and see what the noise is looking like. And that looks okay. I'm also gonna stack them so it's gonna clear up a little bit. Looks good. There's a little bit of purple in the shadows. I'll just fix that in Photoshop. Then we'll go ahead and copy and paste these settings to the other photos. Control-Shift-C. And then we'll paste that. So my keyboard might be a little bit loud because I got a mechanical keyboard. I'm going to see how they look. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and match the exposures. These ones are a little bit darker. I actually like how these exposures look, so I'm actually just gonna reduce the exposures on these. If I hold down shift while sliding the slider, it gives me more fine-tuned control. Let's see how that looks. Alright, that looks pretty good. I might just take the vignetting back, vignetting correction back. Alright. I'm going to go ahead and open these as layers in Photoshop. The first thing I'll do is go ahead and stack the foreground layers. So I have these three over here. So I have the second stacked right here. I'm going to reduce the opacity to 50%, so I'm going to be using layer averaging. Then the third layer is going to be 33%. If I zoom in here, much less noise. Here's original, here's after, original, after, so it's reducing the color noise and the luminance. So that looks much better. And good thing there wasn't really much wind this night, so the tent wasn't all flapping around in the photo. Alright. I'm going to go ahead and merge these with Control E, call this foreground. Focus. Alright, next I gotta duplicate these. Control J. I'm gonna use one set of these for the background stack of the half dome. So the second layer will be 50%, third layer 33%. Control E, merge them. So before, after, much cleaner. Alright. I'll just call this background. Focus. And then the next thing I want to do is stack these ones with the Milky Way. So I'm going to have to align the Milky Way, the sky. So I'm going to go ahead and see how well Photoshop will align them. I'm going to go ahead and add a mask on one of the layers. Use my brush at 100%, change that to black. Size it up with a bracket key and then paint out the foreground and the background. So I just want the selection of the sky, so Photoshop doesn't try to use the foreground for aligning. So I'm holding down Alt, dragging the mask to the layers to copy them. And I'm going to go ahead and select them. Go to Edit, Auto Align Layers, leave it on Auto. See how well that will stack them. Alright, doesn't look too bad. I might have to do some fine-tune adjustments. So I'm going to go ahead and delete those layer masks now that I don't need them. I'm going to change the blending mode to difference, and that will allow me to see how well it actually aligned them. So if the stars are showing up as the white dots, that means they aren't aligned that well. But if it's black, then that means it is aligned. Alright, so I'm just going to go ahead and do a better job at aligning them. I'm going to use the Puppet Warp tool. This is basically the best tool to give it a good alignment. So I'm going to go ahead and change the density to fewer points. And then I'll add a few points all over. I'm going to show mesh. Alright, that should be good. And then I'll start fixing these. So see how these stars aren't very aligned? I'm going to go ahead and move it until it has pretty good alignment. Alright, so this is a time-consuming process, but it gets great results. And recently, Lonely Spec did a tutorial on Stereo Landscape Stacker, so that's a program for Mac that will automatically do this job. So go check that out if you're interested. Go ahead and do the next one now. Alright, that should do it. Go ahead and stack these now. 50%. Oh, wrong one. 50%. 33%. See how that does. Okay, it looks like it's out of alignment. I'm gonna go ahead and do some more fine-tune adjusting then. I'm just going to use the arrow keys to see if I can make this any better. Alright, that's a little bit better. But you get the idea. So obviously I might need some more adjustments to make it align a little bit better. But it's just a time-consuming process. Well, yeah, that looks pretty good. Okay. So the problem now is that the foreground is blurry. So I'm going to have to mask that in and also fix it. But I'll go ahead and merge these layers. So I want to get a good selection of the sky on the layer that has sharp focus on the foreground. Alright, so I'm just going to use the quick selection tool. See how well that works. Select the sky out. So I'm going to have to fine tune this. So I'm just going to use the polygonal lasso tool just to do this. Whoops, I need to actually add. Oh, minus, I mean. Alright, so that looks pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and select and mask, and then use the radius to get a fine tune it more to get a good selection. So looking at this photo, it won't be too much of a problem. I can just manually blend it, and I'm not really getting that many star trails in the foreground. So I'll just output that to a selection. I'll go ahead and save it. And then I'll mask that out. So I should actually invert that selection, Control I. Okay. Now we're getting somewhere. So now I just need to move the image a little bit more up to get those ones out of the way. So I need to move it up a bit. Alright, I think that'll work. And then what I'm going to do is just go to the layer mask and use a brush tool to manually add it back in. See, and it's not even really a problem. I'm not really getting the star trails. But if I went up, yeah, there's the star trails, but I just have to avoid it. I'm also going to get these trees in. Then I'll go ahead and fine tune these. Okay, that looks pretty good. And next thing I want to do is add in the foreground layer with the tent in focus. Okay, it looks like I'm gonna have to maybe enlarge this photo a little bit. Okay, yeah, I have to. I'm gonna go ahead and just size this up a little bit. Let's do it. Am I doing this wrong? Okay, so I'm just using a difference blending mode and resizing it. Just trying to align it best as possible. It doesn't have to be perfect. Alright. Now I can go ahead and just mask this out. So I'm going to add a blank or black mask by holding down Alt using the layer mask button. And then I'm going to start brushing in the tent and the foreground. So this is actually the first time I'm editing this photo, so that's why it might be a little bit slow. So I'm just doing a quick fix on this. I might need to pull this up more to make it easier. Okay. So this is a little bit better on the tree over here, so I'll just mask that in here. And then I'll go ahead and fill this up, or fill this in. So with this other layer here, it's kind of intruding in on the photo. So just for this side of the tent, the right side, I'll just go ahead and go to the liquefy tool and push it in a little bit. Okay. See if there's anything else. All right, and go ahead and crop it. And then I can start doing some editing. First thing I'm going to do is make the, you know what, first thing I'll do is maybe adjust the color in the foreground. I'm going to see if I can adjust this a little bit more. So I definitely want to make it a little bit less purple. And I think that's doing a pretty good job. And I definitely want to mask this only so that it affects the foreground. Size up the brush, 0% hardness, and then I'll just mask it out. There's also this yellow over here. Maybe I'll reduce that yellow right there too. See how that looks. Just looks like someone peed in the snow or something. Just the reflection of the tent. Maybe I'll make it a little bit more orange and desaturate it a little bit. Invert that mask and then just paint in where I want the effect to be. Alright, yeah, that's better. Alright, so now I want to add some more contrast in the Milky Way. So I'm going to do a curves adjustment. Maybe I'll just do the overall whole image. I'm going to see how that looks. So I'm going to use the picker tool. Go to a bright part of the Milky Way. And then go to a dark part of the Milky Way, decrease that. Adding a bit of an S-curve. But I don't want it to make it too dark. I still want to control the shadows. Okay, that's pretty good. Looks pretty good to me. I'm noticing that it's making half dome a little bit more red. Maybe I'll adjust the color of that too. I just have to maybe desaturate it a little bit. Okay, that's pretty good. I'll go ahead and add that in. Alright, so I might do a selection of the sky and try to maybe increase the contrast a little bit more. So I'll just have to see how that looks. I'll go ahead and delete the luminosity mask that I've already made. And go ahead and create some new ones. Okay, I definitely need to fix this a bit more. Alright, that looks pretty good. I think those dark parts are getting a little bit too dark. I'll go ahead and go find my darks. And paint those out. Alright, I might try sharpening up the stars in the corners a little bit because they look pretty soft. So I'll go ahead and press Ctrl, Shift, Alt, and E to create a stamp layer. And then I'll just use the unsharp mask to sharpen up these stars a little bit. That looks pretty good. And then I'll just do a elliptical selection. Mask that. And then, let's see, invert that. Go to properties. Where's the property? Right here. And feather that out. And for that bottom part, I'll just remove that. Alright, so I'm pretty happy with how it turned out, and it looks pretty good. So if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, and consider subscribing if you haven't done so already. Thanks for watching.